Jen, you want to? Okay, good morning. This is Senate Health and Welfare. It is February 22nd. And we're going to once again look at H469 and take a look at all of the sections and a walkthrough before we complete committee discussion and possible vote sometime either today or possibly tomorrow or early next week. So Jen, thanks for being here. And I know that Cindy Brzezzi from the Vermont Ethics Network is available should we need her on Zoom. We've got some company with us. That's great.
Well, good morning. Jen Carby from the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I will put the language up here. And I know we talked about advanced directives, and you talked with, I think, the House reporter on the bill and Cindy Brzezzi last week. So now we'll look at the language of H469 as passed by the House. And it is now entitled an act relating to remote and electronic processes for executing an advanced directive. Starts out by adding in 18 VSA section 9701 is toward the beginning of the chapter on advanced directives, and it would add a new definition of digital signature, meaning an electronic identifier intended by the individual using it to have the same force and effect as a manual signature, and that meets several requirements. It uses an algorithm approved by either the National Institute of Standards and Technology or by the Department of Health. It is unique to the person using it. It is capable of verification. It is under the sole control of the individual using it. It is linked to data in a manner that invalidates the digital signature if the data is changed. It persists with the document and not by association in separate files, and it is bound to a digital certificate. You'll see this.
That seems pretty.
Yes, we've worked a fair amount on the definition
I think so.
upstairs last year. And remote witness is a witness who is not physically present when a principal signs an advanced directive. That definition gets pulled out of the standalone section and put into the whole chapter. Section 2 amends 18 VSA 9703, which is the form and execution of an advanced directive. So the first thing this does is to specify that the principal's signature does not need to be signed in the presence of, but it needs to be signed by 2 or more witnesses who are at least 18 years of age. So the advanced directive must be dated, executed by the principal or another individual in the principal's presence, the principal's expressed direction if the principal is physically unable to do so, and signed by 2 or more witnesses at least 18 years of age, keeping the same language. And then we specify how that would work. So on and after April 1st of this year, which is when some of the temporary provisions will expire, on and after April 1st, 2024, the principal shall have either signed in the physical presence of the witness or the following conditions shall have been met. The witness is a remote witness, that defined term. And you may remember some of this from the language that we looked at that was in the temporary provision. So the principal and the remote witness were known to each other based on communication between the principal and the remote witness through live interactive audio video connection or by telephone. The remote witness attested that the principal seemed to understand the nature of the document and to be free from duress or undue influence at the time the advanced directive was signed, and that's that same language in the existing statute. And the principal included on the advanced directive the name and contact information for the remote witness and the nature of the principal's relationship to the remote witness.
You said seem to understand, how is that,
Yeah.
who's going to determine?
Well, this is the remote witness in their judgment is only supposed to be signing if they can, if they can say the principal seemed to understand. They can't guarantee because they're not the principal, but, and this is the same language that's in the existing, laws appeared to understand. In this case, there may not be an actual physical appearance if it's by phone, but that the person seemed to understand what they were doing and not be coerced. And just a couple of non-gendered language changes, update for a little bit of current drafting style. And then we get into this is the provision about the explainer, so an advanced directive. If a person is being, the principal is being admitted to a nursing home or residential care facility, or you'll see hospital, patient in a hospital are being admitted, there has to be this independent explainer who explains the nature and purpose of the advanced directive. And this specifies, which is again, these are provisions we've had temporarily in law that were put in place during the pandemic that would be made permanent and a little bit more descriptive, including this idea of a digital signature. So the individual who explains the nature and effect of an advanced directive to the principal under this subsection, this explainer in a nursing home or residential care context, may be physically present in the same location as the principal at the time of the explanation, or may deliver it to the explanation to the principal through a live interactive audio video connection or by telephone. And we have the same provisions, a little bit of formatting and language updating, but non-substantive around the hospital explainer. And again, the hospital explainer can be physically present with the principal or deliver the explanation through live interactive audio video connection or by telephone. And then at the end of this section, it specifies, this is about the digital signature, a principal, a witness, or the explainer may sign the advanced directive or the explanation affirmation statement using a digital signature, provided that for a remote witness, the conditions set forth in subdivision B2, go back to these additional provisions about what they're attesting to, and that the principal includes their contact information, that must still be met. But this is allowing a digital signature for the principal, the witness, and the explainer. Section 3, so this is specific to the Ulysses clause. So subsection H, we had talked about the Ulysses clause, but I don't know if you looked at the language. So an advanced directive may contain a provision permitting the agent, in the event the principal lacks capacity, to authorize or withhold healthcare over the principal's objection. So the advanced directive that is executed while the principal has capacity can have a provision in it saying the agent can authorize or withhold healthcare over my objection if I don't have capacity. And there are several additional requirements for what we refer to as the Ulysses clause. It's not literally called that in the statute. It's just an easy shorthand. So in order to be valid, the provision must comply with these requirements. And this is existing law. I'm just showing you as sort of background to get into the remote provision. An agent shall be named in the provision. The agent must accept in writing the responsibility of authorizing or withholding care over the principal's objection if the principal lacks capacity. A clinician for the principal must sign the provision and affirm that the principal appeared to understand the benefits, risks, and alternatives to the healthcare being authorized or rejected by the principal in the provision, so the principal knows what they're doing when they're executing this provision. An explainer type, so an ombudsman, mental health patient representative, attorney, or probate division designee must sign a statement affirming that they have explained the nature and effect of the provision to the principal. The principal appeared to understand the explanation and be free from duress or undue influence. And if the principal is a patient in a hospital, then when the provision is executed, then this explainer has to be independent of the hospital and not be an interested individual, which is also a defined term. The provision must specify the treatments to which it applies, so it has to be fairly specific, and include an explicit statement that the principal desires or does not desire the proposed treatments, even over the principal's objection, the time treatment is being offered or withheld. And it may include a statement expressly granting to the agent the authority to consent to the principal's voluntary hospitalization against all existing law. The provision must include an acknowledgement that the principal is knowingly and voluntarily waiving the right to refuse or receive treatment at a time of incapacity, and the principal understands that a clinician will determine capacity. And then it says, so those are all the things that have to be in the provision. A provision executed in compliance with that list will be effective when the principal's clinician and a second clinician have determined that the principal lacks capacity. So it takes two clinicians to say principal lacks capacity before Ulysses Clause would kick in. If an advance directive contains a Ulysses Clause, the agent may, and this is now authorizing the principal, the agent to act, in the event the principal lacks capacity, make healthcare decisions over the principal's objection, as long as those decisions are made in compliance with the agent's responsibilities under this chapter. And it directs the clinician to follow the instructions of the agent authorizing or withholding healthcare over the principal's objection. Now we get to the new language. The first time a principal executes a provision under this subsection, the principal's clinician must be physically present in the same location as the principal to assess the principal's understanding of the benefits, risks, and alternatives to the healthcare being authorized or rejected in the provision. And the individual explaining the nature and effect of the provision, that kind of independent explainer, must be physically present in the same location as the principal at the time of explanation. So no remote witnessing for those parts by the clinician and the explainer if somebody is executing a Ulysses Clause. If a principal later amends a provision executed under this subsection, this Ulysses Clause provision, by executing a new advance directive that includes a Ulysses Clause, a provision permitting the agent to authorize or withhold care over the principal's objection, or the principal executes a new advance directive that maintains a previous Ulysses Clause. So new advance directive that has a provision or that has the same language, Ulysses Clause language, then the clinician may be physically present in the same location as the principal, or may assess the principal's understanding based on the clinician's interactions with the principal through a live interactive audio video connection. There's not a telephone option here, just clinician either be physically present for a subsequent Ulysses Clause, or can observe and interact with the principal by audio video connection. And the individual explaining the nature and effect of the provision may be physically present in the same location as the principal, or may deliver the explanation again through live interactive audio video connection. So first time you do a Ulysses Clause, clinician and explainer must be physically present. For a subsequent or revision to an advance directive with the Ulysses Clause, the explainer and clinician can be physically present or audio, video, not telephone. And specifies that the clinician and the explainer do not have to be physically present at the same time as each other or otherwise coordinate the time or performance of their respective duties. And it also specifies that the agent who is permitted to authorize or withhold care over the principal's objection does not need to be physically present for any portion of the principal's execution of that provision or of the advance directive. The principal, the agent, the clinician, and the explainer, or any one or more of them, may sign the provision, acceptance, or explanation affirmation statement as applicable using a digital signature. Finally, we put an end date on the remote witnesses and explainers. The language of this has changed over time. This was the piece that was in effect specifically dealing with the COVID period that now this bill would codify and keep on going some of these remote witnessing provisions. So the first change here is to delete or repeal the definition of remote witness, because that was moved up to the beginning of the chapter in section 1. So it still applies to this section, but it applies to these other provisions in the chapter as well. And then it doesn't make any changes to the past practice. The February 15th, 2020 to June 15th, 2020, that was the kind of blessed after the fact when we were deep in the pandemic. Doesn't make any changes there. This does keep the provisions in place about an advance directive executed between June 15th, 2020 and March 31st, 2024, because this act would take effect on April 1st, 2024. So it would go from the old right seamlessly into the new. And then it just adds something at the end saying on and after April 1st, 2024, we're going to stick with the ongoing provisions that are amended in this bill. And the act would take effect on April 1st.
Questions? So it is codifying audiovisual access, but also clarifying that it's with the Ulysses Clause, must have physical presence. And accept if it's a revision of the clause.
Right, and then it can be audiovisual, but not telephone. Whereas
I mean, all of that essentially, and then the electronic signature piece.
the electronic, right, exactly. So there's some remote processes and then electronic signature.
Yeah.
Aspect.
Where did the electronic signature language come from? Like, that's very
It's pretty specific.
specific about
The
what,
list about what the
Yeah.
digital signature looks like. I looked at other states' laws on this, and tried, while ago, I'm not specifically referring, and Cindy may remember as well, we worked pretty hard to refine it, and some of it came, actually, a lot of it came from Maryland statutes. We've been, I think it's a combination of
Cindy's up there. too.
Texas, yes, it's some combination of Texas, Maryland, and California, I think. Trying to get the pieces that felt the most secure yet accessible.
and the Department of Health has a role in that signature.
The
Are
Department of
they,
Health can have a role in this.
okay,
So the Department of Health, so the language is, I think that the Department of Health piece is that the algorithm either has to be approved by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is big in the technology space, or by the Department of Health.
oh,
That's
Cindy, welcome. Did you want to introduce yourself to the record and make a comment?
Hi, sorry for my gravelly voice. Cindy Brzezzi from the Vermont Ethics Network. Thanks, Jen. That was a great overview of the changes. My recollection is also correct about, we looked at other states. We're not the first state to think about and to adopt or consider adopting digital signature for advanced directives. So other states are doing this. And so we looked at their language to see what seemed reasonable for us to deploy. Yes, we will work with the Department of Health as we do with all of our advanced directive forms, just to make sure that everything works seamlessly and is in compliance with what their expectations are.
Remind us of the number of advanced directives that might be coming through, maybe on a yearly basis. Do you have that?
So, what I can tell you, advanced directives are interesting because you can't require people to have them. Although CMS does require physicians and hospitals to ask people if they have them. In terms of quantitative numbers, we're getting about a little over 5,000 new advanced directives submitted to the Advanced Directive Registry every year. So that is we do have a measurable number that we can look at for people who choose to send their documents to the registry. Not everyone is sending their documents to the registry. And we have 51,000 Vermonters and growing already in the Vermont Advanced Directive Registry. So we do have a lot of people completing advanced directives on a yearly basis and updating existing advanced directives as well, and interacting with the Vermont Advanced Directive Registry. So the ability to do more of this all remote, all with electronically using tablets or phones or computers does, I think, increase accessibility, particularly for people who don't have printers. They could do we are trying to expand options for people to be able to be self-determining and complete advanced directives without having to have all kinds of technology with printers and scanners, because that makes it hard for some people to be able to do this. So that's what I know in terms of quantifiable numbers.
Well, thank you. No, that's very helpful. I mean, it's a significant number. 5,000 a year is pretty hefty. Actually.
It's way more than, we've seen a big jump in the last 4 or 5 years. I think we were averaging around, 25 to 3,000 people a year pre-COVID. And now it seems to have really jumped. And I don't know what that's, maybe that's just, it took 15 years for us to finally get the word out that this is a good thing that people should do. But it's nice to see that people are actually doing it.
Thank you. Any other questions for Cindy or Jen? Are there any suggestions? Is there anything that stands out that you would like to look at further in terms of improvements to the language? I mean, looks like things have been walked through, and worked out. Yeah,
Do you know if the House took any negative testimonies about this bill?
I don't know, you'd have to ask, the reporter, the Representative Noyes, maybe would be able to.
It was Hyman, you know Hyman?
I'm sorry, it was Hyman, sorry.
I I can say that there was not unanimous agreement about, our recommendation at the Ethics Network and from the Palliative Care Task Force was to have Ulysses clauses be just like regular advance directives and to not limit, to make it so that they could do even the first one, remotely. So that was our recommendation. There was testimony from the Alzheimer's Association as well, obviously people who are elders. This is a growing provision that is being integrated into many elders' documents as it relates to dementia and issues of feeding. That seems to be, and medication. So that is a growing group that is utilizing this provision. And so we had a recommendation that we wanted it to be that anyone could do this, even the first time, all remote, just like we would for a regular advance directive. The Ombudsman's Office and I think disabilities objected to that, and the compromise language is what you see in the bill, which is the first one would be in person with a physician who has to get the informed consent, as well as with the explainer, but any subsequent provisions could be done using the remote option. So that was a compromise language. So we had to sort of go back and forth a little bit on that piece. So just in terms of transparency, there was some pushback about, I figure there would be, but I still think from a fairness and justice perspective, we shouldn't set bars higher for people that are already struggling to do this. And we should be equitable and fair in how we allow people to be self-determining. But this was compromise language, and we're fine to proceed as it's depicted in the bill.
Okay. Are you okay?
Makes sense, yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, so, the bill, unless people have recommendations for changes and amendments, what we will do is we'll put it on the agenda for tomorrow for committee discussion and possible vote. Because it is time sensitive, it needs to be in law, it needs to be a law by April 1st, so. And I'm not, I wouldn't hold us to making a vote today, but. Well, is there anyone who would like to wait until tomorrow? I mean, my usual process is to wait a day. And it gives you time just to think it through and finish. Huh?
I'd wait.
You'd like to wait a day, and I'm fine with doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, just in case anybody out in the ether also wants to.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll have it, Kiki will have it on the agenda when Jen is here tomorrow, morning, and we'll put a, because we did warn it as a possible vote, and I like to do that as well. Okay. Thank you. Great. So we have some time here on.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Oh, I didn't do that. Thank you, Senator Williams.
Thanks, Jen.
And take care of yourself.
Thanks, I'm on the mend. Prefer
Good.
not to be around people right now.
Thank
All
you.
right, good.
Care.
All right. So, while we have a little bit of time, I'm gonna say that, I'll save us some time tomorrow. I don't have a final agenda for tomorrow, but there are a number of bills that we are working on, and we'll be picking up some additional testimony and perhaps some language tomorrow, next week. And so my suggestion for next week is that we meet earlier in the day, particularly because we're gonna be on the floor possibly Tuesday morning. If that isn't the case, then we'll save some time on Wednesday. I do have a scheduled at 8 in the morning. I'm happy to move it to 8:15 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we can be somewhat flexible on those times, just to give us a little more time for town meeting week. And we'll continue to look at S-302, which is the Alzheimer's bill. Try to get to a good place with that. And I have heard from a constituent regarding translation and translating software, I think it is, accessible translations for a number of different languages. So I'll put that, we can bring that in. And then we'll also be trying to finish some work on S-98, which is the Prescription Drug Advisory Board. 186, which is the Recovery Center's outcomes measurement piece. And then some other bills, and one of the bills, some of these bills we probably can act on. Think pretty quickly, so I'll tell you more. I don't have the full agenda yet to that question.
But just a couple of things. One, I can't meet at 8:15 every day next week. I have meetings, regular meetings scheduled between 8 and 9 on any days, so.
Every day?
Well, definitely Thursday I can't do. So I could do Wednesday and maybe Friday, but I can't.
Okay, so we'll see how it goes, yeah.
The other thing is I'd love to see the language that you say was agreed on yesterday.
It's not ready yet. I can't show that to you yet. I don't have it. It's the group's sort of working on it.
Okay,
So,
and then this morning I need to go meet with an attorney, one of the Ledge Council attorneys, so I'm trying to figure out when is the best time for me to not be here.
that's up to you.
Well, I mean, cause like I would have done
Right
it
now is
now
a good time because we're gonna take a little break.
until 10.
Yeah, we're gonna do that in
Okay.
just a minute. You're
Okay.
anticipating that. So when we, if Katie were available, we could vote on S-192 right now, but we'll do that as scheduled as we go, and then we'll go through and should say possible vote on 189. We'll try to get to a vote on 189. And then the sunscreen bill that we're looking at tomorrow is probably something to consider. We do have the bill H-72 in here, which are the overdose protection sites. We will pick that up next week to have a walkthrough on that bill, so I'm prepping you up for that one. There's a lot of interest out in the addiction world, recovery world, treatment world for that bill, and so we will ultimately look at it. I want to get started on it next week. So we'll take a break. That's just a question, just
more of a comment, but I also would prefer starting at 9 and just being efficient with our time. 'Cause it seems like 3 hours is a good chunk of time to get a lot of work done, if possible.
I would do that, except that we are voting on the Sergeant at Arms in the morning on Thursday. So that's why I'm trying to pick up some extra time. Perhaps Thursday we'll start a little bit later and we'll see how that goes. We may not need all that time, but I'm just heads up, don't schedule anything more.
Okay.
That's all. All right,